Hey singers, today's video is all about the tongue. Now the tongue is a really sneaky rascal. Everybody I know who sings deals with tongue tension from time to time, and over the last, few decades, I feel like I have learned so many tips and tricks on how to negotiate with the tongue. So I'm going to teach some of my favorites to you today. And we're going to, rather than doing one exercise kind of up and down through the range, I'm just going to teach you a few different approaches for dealing with the tongue. And that way you can take what's most useful to you and just start to incorporate that into your practice. So the first one is just a straightforward tongue stretch. We're going to begin by lengthening the posture upward. And as we stretch the tongue, we want to sort of avoid the extent to which the jaw can follow and then the chin and neck can follow the tongue forward. We want the stretch to be in the tongue, not in like the neck and jaw. So lifting here, I'm going to go ahead and stretch my tongue forward. And then toward the side, maybe like toward one ear. And the other ear. And up toward the nose. And now out and sort of downward as I yawn. All right, so you feel how much sort of stretch you can get in all of those soft membranes inside the mouth. So now we're going to go into the first sort of sung exercise. And what we're going to do here is we're just going to place the tongue out on the bottom lip, like this. Now this is something that's really easy for you to see yourself doing. You also are getting more feedback in terms of feeling from both the tongue and the lower lip. So this can be much more helpful than just thinking, relax the tongue. Here, what we're doing is we're encouraging a relaxation all along the tongue, especially in that back part you just stretched, but we're able to do it by keeping the front of the tongue in a spot where we can see it and where we can feel if it's starting to become rigid. So all we're gonna do here is just place the tongue on that lower lip, and we're gonna sing an arpeggiated scale here. So I'm just gonna go. Now when I do that, it's very possible that my tongue might want to. You could see it kind of pulling back, and you can also hear how the tone then becomes a little bit more metallic and narrow. Or the tongue might harden. A more subtle difference, but I can certainly feel it. So what we really want to do, sorry, I skipped one, is just keep it soft all down that midline of the tongue and look in the mirror to make sure it's staying forward. So that's one approach, and obviously you can use any kind of musical figure. You can use something from an excerpt of music, whatever your preference, but I think that that is really helpful in terms of making sure that the back of the tongue stays loose by monitoring the front of the tongue. Now here's another approach for trying to kind of get at the back of the tongue. We're gonna now look at moving the tongue sideways rather than forward. So we're gonna begin by making a horrible sound. If you have seen The Silence of the Lambs, the original movie, this will make you think of Hannibal Lecter and fava beans, but we're going to put our tip of our tongue up behind our bottom teeth. Up behind the top teeth, like that. And then we're gonna slurp air in underneath the tongue. So it's gonna make this terrible sound. Gross, right? And when you do that, you can feel that there's a part of your tongue on either side that gets cold. It's that sort of underneath soft part. And what we're gonna do now is as we sing, and again, the figure is really arbitrary. I'll choose a 9-note scale to give you a break from those arpeggios. And as I sing, I'm going to try to lift those sides of the tongue that just felt cold and spread them sideways. So I like to imagine that, like in a lazy boy chair, you know how you spread your arms out on the armrests? That's the kind of motion that I'm thinking of my tongue doing, maybe up and over those back molars. So here, for me, I really needed that as I approached the top. Maybe from about the 5th upward, I could feel the tongue beginning to kind of harden and narrow. And so I was just counteracting that without sticking it forward by letting it go to the sides. Let's do one more. So that one feels great for me. And if sticking the tongue forward sometimes for you results in like kind of some tightening in the throat, or you have a lot of jaw issues and that's irritating for you, try this sideways motion. Now here is one more way that we can sort of manipulate the tongue, and that is to give it a job to do, almost distracting the tongue. This also builds up facility in the tongue, which is something you're going to need for clear diction. So what we're going to do here is we're going to make the consonants L, la 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 la, and Y, ya 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 ya, with respectively the front and the back of the tongue. So here's what I'm doing. For the L, the tip of the tongue is coming up and touching the palate right behind the top teeth. And then for the Y, I'm rocking the tongue backwards so the back of the tongue comes up against the palate. So la ya la ya la ya la ya. Now what you might notice is my jaw is neutral here. I'm not going la ya la ya la ya. That's not going to give me the tongue exercise that is the whole reason I'm doing this work. So what I'm going to do is first, I'm going to practice just that tongue movement and sending my air through the vowel that comes in between. So like this. La ya, la ya, la ya, la ya. Good, and now I'm going to sing a 9-note scale, but every 4 notes I'm going to change the consonant. So here is the slow version, and then we'll speed up. La ya, and we'll go at about this speed. La ya, la ya, la. Try with me here. La ya, la ya, la. And here. La ya, la ya, la. So you might notice that even between those deliberate actions, maybe the tongue is kind of sneaking backward or hardening. You might have to keep an eye on it even between those consonant kind of pillars of this exercise. But at least you now have a job for the tongue to do, which can be helpful. So these are 4 different ways: a tongue stretch, singing with the tongue on the lower lip, singing and kind of using those tongue flaps to make the tongue expand sideways in the mouth. And then 4th, to give the tongue a job by using the consonants L and Y over a 9-note scale. I hope that at least one of those will be helpful or fun for you, and thank you for practicing.